have claimed to own the rights to the lyrics and have claimed the right to charge royalty fees. The ruling puts Happy Birthday in the public domain. It's unclear if there will be an appeal. Steve Futterman, CBS News, Los Angeles.
A Bankrate.com report estimates that 30 million Americans dipped into retirement nest eggs to pay for an emergency within the past year. People approaching retirement, those between 50 and 64 years of age, were the most likely group to break the piggy bank. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
Are you predictable? When was the last time you surprised us?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. The crisis, the scandal over Volkswagen is a phony scandal, and you, my listener, are supposed to be impressed by it. You're supposed to be alarmed by it, disturbed by the idea that possibly software in up to, in millions, potentially in 11 million Volkswagen cars, is telling a false story in the diesel engines of cars made by that company that are emitting nitrogen oxide more in real life than at the moment these vehicles are tested by the EPA, or the sample copies are tested by the Environmental Protection Agency. We are to understand that that is true and that is right, that the market valuation of Volkswagen, the German car maker, actually it's a globalist and global car maker, is indeed is right that its share values fell more than $30 billion in the past couple of days since the alleged scandal broke. But I want to ask you, what stake do you have in Volkswagen's software being confused and having kind of varied reports of the emission of this particular form of waste that comes from the burning of diesel fuel in its engines? Well, this is David Tulis, as I said, and the scandal is breaking. It's a scandal that I want to suggest to you is a kind of important and valuable distraction, and that if you accept it with indignation, hear about it with indignation, that you have to some extent bought into the official narrative. You might even say the deep state narrative, which highlights this pollution and requires you, my listener, to take up a grievance that we now are to understand is had by the EPA, a federal regulatory agency, against this car manufacturer. You are to take up a grievance that its rules have been stymied, that its processes have been tampered with, and that the jiggering of the emissions that come from the tailpipe of these Volkswagen cars are really foul and polluted. And yet that's hardly the case. It's hardly the case. These variations are one that don't affect you personally. You have no interest whether the emissions from a Volkswagen car are slightly more or slightly less than reported to the government, right? Then the government has an idea of how much nitrous oxide comes out of the back of a tailpipe. And you now, since hearing that it's actually quite a bit more in these tiny amounts, you are supposed to be upset and indignant and hostile, and to say, we need to have more regulation. We are all offended. And in fact, this storyline has been taken up by Mr. Winterkorn, or Herr Winterkorn himself, and others. He says his first name is Martin. He is the Volkswagen Group CEO, and taking up the official story, having no other choice but to do so. He says, "I am personally deeply sorry that we have broken the trust of our customers and the public." And Volkswagen, having made this announcement, has set aside $7.27 billion to account for litigation recalls, and the like. Probably not enough if the extent of this scandal is as far reaching as we are being led to believe here at the early stages. The software is called having it's a defeat device. In other words, it's a device, a programming device that defeats the readings of this of nitrogen oxide, and he terms it misconduct. Okay, there's conduct, which is what we do, and then there's misconduct. It's what we do that we're ashamed of, and Mr. Winterkorn and the whole lines of brass at this international company with a giant plant here in Chattanooga are playing along. Right, they're playing along with the story, and the story again is that there's a grievous breach against you, my listener, a member of the public. And I'm here to suggest to you, I'm just making suggestions here, okay? I'm not going to declare firmly that you haven't been offended, but I'd like you to think that if you're offended, if you think somehow that you wouldn't buy a Volkswagen Passat made in Chattanooga on account of this, that you are just kind of being sold a bill of goods. And there's one story that we're reading about in the Wall Street Journal. The front page of the Chattanooga Times-Free Press today has the logo of the Volkswagen. On the right side, you have the bright blue and white letters on a blue background, and the letters turn into rust on the right half of this circle because this is all rust now. And the Volkswagen that we're thinking about is the one in the junkyard that's been there so long that there is rust creeping along the hood and along the door handles and up around the fenders. That's the Volkswagen we're thinking of. It's just in the junk heap over at Bohannon's junkyard in Rossville, one of those giant junkyards there for involved in recycling, right? The recycling yard. Well, the story is not that big. It's not that big. Volkswagen has not broken a public trust at all. Okay, it has not offended you as a quote member of the public. You are perhaps a member of the public. You may even take part in the franchise and be a voter, but it hasn't offended you there either. Where is the offense? Well, the offense is really in appearances, and the offense is in a relationship that this giant combine has with another giant combine, and that is the federal government. And of course, the governments of Europe that also impose air pollution control measures on all cars. So think for a second how long we've had air pollution controls in vehicles. We've had them for 40 or 50 years now, and in some countries maybe even longer. We have the 1960-something Clean Air Act, or maybe 1970-something Clean Air Act. So it's at least 40 years old. How far has pollution control gone in all these years? Well, it's gone a long way, we could say. How else, if we are going to have a moment of pride here, how else can we say that Chattanooga has cleaned up its act? Well, it's thanks to the federal government. We are going to hear Chris Brooks and Lana Sutton and other very enlightened progressives tell us. Well, if we have had such great progress in the past decades, how then is this suddenly putting us back 40 years? How is Volkswagen's emissions quote scandal unquote putting us back? Well, it's not. These are tiny amounts. Okay, even if you hear that, well, it's 50 times worse in real life an emission of nitrogen oxide than when the test is made. Well, even so, these are, again, such tiny amounts after decades of improvement in car technology, in fuel technology, and the great power of genius that has been applied in Volkswagen and other countries into the creation of engines, right? Engines they're also called motors, but they're really not motors, they're engines, gasoline and diesel burning engines. You don't have a stake in these rules. You don't. Neither do I, not directly. Now, those who are of ideological bent, they will identify with these rules, and they will identify their souls with the fact that the EPA exists, that is there to safeguard all of us individually, one man at a time. And so they are going to be offended. They're going to be indignant. Here's one more proof that while someone like me, David Tulis, your host here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, delves into the miscreancies of the state, we have really to pay our attention elsewhere, direct our attention not to the state and its administrations of good and evil, but to the corporations. And of course, they highlight big corporations, and the left, the progressives, are always against big corporations, as if somehow the free market is not either, right? As if people like you, my listener, are not either against these gigantic corporate combines, these giant accretions of capital, managing labor, overseeing 600,000 people who work for these for this company. Well, the scandal does not affect you and does not affect us one bit. It doesn't make the air in Chattanooga any worse than it already is. Now you say, well, okay, where are we going with this? Well, here's where we're going with this. The reason this story is not a real story is because the same government that through the EPA regulates the details, right? It has on the side, it has a free market program in which the free market belongs entirely to the national security apparatus. And that is the free market of weather modification, which emits millions of tons of particulate in the air. It's called aerosols, the same kind of particulate that comes out of a volcano when it blows up and dims the sun. Volcanic activity is of great interest to scientists around the world, climatologists, and also people involved in the fight against global warming, as it is called. That fight is conducted in the think tanks, various think tanks, in Harvard University, at Cambridge, at Princeton, in Calgary, in Canada. There are scientists who are proposing and studying in detail and building models about the official pollution program that we need to have. We need to have, they say, an official pollution program that fills the air with grit and dirt. Yes, grit and dirt. And the grit and dirt we think we need to have, and that we're proposing in our academic literature, will save the planet. They say it will save the planet by deflecting sunlight back into the atmosphere, and reducing, as they tell you, reducing global warming. While academia talks about prospectively a massive chemtrail program, we actually have one going on almost every day here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. Now, my name is David Tulis, and I'm the editor of a website that views this as an important environmental story. I cover this story as best I can. On days when I can't get to it, on days when I can't check the latest reports out of academia or check up on what various experts in this field are saying, I at the very least make note of the incidents of white plumes over Chattanooga. And these white plumes are part of policy, right? They are, I think, in the end, deep state activities, and they serve multiple purposes, some of which we can only guess at, others of which we can surmise at with some data to support it. Here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, we have been subjected to aerosol geoengineering. It's called stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, or SAG, on a bunch of days. And by my visual observation, by the scientific apparatus that I have in my skull, I have twin optical units by which I note data. And then I have another recording device called a hand that grabs another device called a marker or ballpoint pen. And so what I do is I mark my calendar. Here's my calendar with all my appointments in it. And on the last day of September, actually the last day of August, on the 29th, we had the treatment on the 1st, the 2nd, the 5th. We also had it, I'm not quite clear on this mark, on the 7th, which was a Monday. And in mid-month, on the 14th, we had stratospheric aerosol geoengineering plumes over Chattanooga. The 15th, the 16th, the 19th, and the 21st, and the 20th, and the 21st. So in the middle of the month, we had 3 days together, and then we had 3 other days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of this week. And, well, Saturday, of course, was last week, but Sunday and Monday were part of this week. And this is something that has gained notice, and it has gained notice from a CBS affiliate. We are the CBS station here in Chattanooga, and we are AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And the notice is from CBS 13 in Redding, California. Now, the writer of this report, this television report that is also published, is full of skepticism of this story that we here in Chattanooga view with as much more than credible. And given my reading over the past year in the scientific literature and following some of the conferences online that in which speakers promote the idea of a sky shield, a sky dome, we don't have the same kind of skepticism as the writer of this CBS 13 television report has. He says, for example, from the outside, he's talking about events where these people who believe in government conspiracy, as he says, are getting together. It's clear the hundreds showing up to beat to a different drum. He says, but stepping inside a packed Reading auditorium is like walking into another world, he says. Outlandish ideas like weather warfare and climate engineering, in other words, weather control, are accepted as basic fact. This of course shows that he knows better, and he knows that the people who are who believe in this story and who account for the story as a true narrative of public policy are simply laughable. And then he quotes Dane Wigington, who is a researcher, been involved in researching this question for probably about 12 years now. He runs geoengineeringwatch.org, and he's quoted as saying, "Climate engineering is the single greatest assault on the environment ever launched by humanity without question. It's a responsibility," he says. "It's not an option, it's an obligation." And here's how you look at some of the videos that I've posted on Nooganomics.com, and you'll hear this, you'll read this reporter's comment and maybe smile a bit. He says, he claims grainy, shaky video is part of a mountain of evidence showing shadowy government forces are using planes to secretly spray fine particles like heavy metals like aluminum into the sky. The purpose, they believe, is to block some of the sun's direct rays from reaching the earth in a desperate attempt to slow global warming. And then there's a quote from Dane Wigington. He says, the list of corroborating material we have is immense, including lab tests that prove the same elements named in geoengineering patents, aluminum, barium, and other heavy metals, are raining down on us in massive quantities. And the writer goes on to say, if you're skeptical, this won't help. He claims the spraying is happening off the coast of California, comes with an incredibly serious side effect. The heavy metal particles are blocking rainfall, effectively steering California's rain somewhere else. In other words, climate engineering, they say, is to blame for the harshest recorded drought in California's history. And Wigington is quoted by CBS, is going on to say, nobody has a right to do this. Nobody has a right to play God with the weather. And so California is in the midst of an ungodly drought. There's a 500-year record of lack of rainfall in the mountains, judging by scientists looking at tree rings and the effect that snowmelt has on tree rings. And they claim that, based on past studies of tree rings, that the drought is at a 500-year exceedingly, the worst drought in 500 years, judging by snowmelt. And so here we have our CBS affiliate in California, in Redding, a television station. We are, of course, radio, and they're giving a report. They're giving They're giving voice to the people who are talking about official pollution, and in light of the fact that we have an official pollution over Chattanooga and Hamilton County, would make me want to suggest to you again that the Volkswagen scandal is one of very, very minor degree. What does it matter to you, my listener, if a little bit more nitrogen oxide is in the air from a diesel engine's burning than happened to have been emitted during the test? Well, the diesel engines are extremely complicated. The Wall Street Journal has reported that these are These are very tricky devices. Diesel is favored in Europe. More than half of new car sales in Europe last year were of diesel cars. And the reason that we can't be too alarmed is that a new car made by Volkswagen has 20 million lines of software code in it, more than airplanes. And that's quoting Bodo Seifert, who is a U.S.-based automotive software expert. And the software helps the engine and regulators in the engine figure out when to trap pollutants or divert them through processes that can convert them into less harmful substances, the Wall Street Journal says, to meet legal limits. And that's quoting Greg Schroeder, assistant director at the Ann Arbor, Michigan Center for Automotive Research. So engines have different processes. Sometimes an engine idles, sometimes it's cruising. And how the pollutants are controlled is the issue. And so when the test is made of emissions of a car, of a Jetta made here in Chattanooga, or a Passat made here in Chattanooga, it may act a little differently than when that car is on the road. And again, that's the computer. Was it deliberate? Well, Volkswagen seems to be admitting that it may have been, or that maybe people knew about it. But again, it's not a scandal. It's not anything you have to be worried about. The cars are still very fine cars, right? They stand in the marketplace on their own merits. And the so-called scandal is one that if you become preoccupied by, well, then maybe you won't notice the real scandal. Maybe you won't look up. Maybe you won't consider that we are being sprayed by these official pollutants in an effort to control the weather, in an effort to dim the sun. We have many days like that here in Chattanooga. This is David Tulis. We're brought to you by Superior Air Systems in the orange vans.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this mild start, expect more dry and warm weather for your Wednesday. First day of fall, but highs in many areas could be near 85 tonight. Lows into the lower 60s. Partly cloudy, continued warm Thursday near 84 with more clouds and a few showers possible on Friday. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Thousands are already waiting on the parade route hours ahead of a historic visit to the White House by Pope Francis.
The formal arrival ceremony on the South Lawn and an estimated 15,000 people in attendance. After the president and the pontiff make brief remarks, the leaders will head into the Oval Office. Administration officials say those talks will be centered not on advancing a political agenda, but on committing to shared values.
Fox Radio's John Decker. Baseball legend Yogi Berra has died at age 90.
Larry Berra, they call him Yogi. His very first time at the plate in the major leagues against the A's. And what does he do? He hits a home run.
He won 10 championships with the Yankees. 8 of his iconic sayings, like "It ain't over till it's over," were even included in Bartlett's familiar quotations.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. Fox News, we report. You decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. Thank you for giving us a couple minutes of your time. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, brought to you by Chattanooga Sports Institute, run by Danielle Mitchell. She has a family practice, orthopedics, and urgent care, and online, ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. The marvel about Danielle is that she's in the local economy version of medicine. She's abstaining from dealing with third-party payers, insurance companies, and the good people in the government, and is a cash-only concierge subscription service, a new model in care where you get to know your doctor. And she is, as several other doctors in the Chattanooga area, are an innovator. And we would like you to consider calling her at Chattanooga Sports Institute, 875-1005. That's 875-1005. We have with us Helen Burns Sharp, who oversees accountability for taxpayer money. It's a group. It's the shortest, ATM, and she has been monitoring. You might say you're my listeners' rights as a taxpayer, and she's been monitoring with care for your purse, city and county government. And she's hearing about the Volkswagen scandal, and is asking what we can do in light of that to kind of wake up on a particular point that is of interest to her. Helen, welcome to our show.
Thank you, David. Thanks for asking me.
Well, tell us what do we need to consider regarding pilots? What is a pilot? Do pilots benefit Volkswagen? And how is my listener somewhat in jeopardy in that there's something lacking in the pilot agreements that our county has with this company?
Okay, a pilot is an acronym for payment in lieu of taxes, and it is a economic development tool that governments sometimes use to give companies a big tax break, if you will. And theoretically, these, I think, should be reserved for situations where there's significant public benefit and where the company can demonstrate that if they didn't get the tax break that they would not locate in a particular place. So Volkswagen, comes to town, and clearly they seem to be a game changer in terms of amount of investment, number of jobs, etc. There was also a lot of competition for Volkswagen. So I really don't fault our elected officials here or at the state for believing they needed to give an incentive to Volkswagen. Now, the way as I have looked at this, it's sort of like, I think we sort of gave them the sun, the moon, and the stars, and I'm not sure, maybe we could have just given them the sun and the moon in terms of the financial package or whatever. But anyway, we did it, and in part we did it because of, their representations on investment and jobs. Also, we did it because they said they would be a catalyst for bringing satellite companies in.
And they have been.
Interestingly, they have been, David, but guess what? We've given tax breaks to all of these companies as well. And I'm sort of a big fan of what's called the but-for test, where companies asked to demonstrate that without the incentive, they wouldn't be here. And a lot of these satellites, which are good companies, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that they're here because of Volkswagen, that they would be here anyway. But we continue to give them tax breaks. So sort of my big thing on the front end is that we need to really have the applicant demonstrate public benefit and meet the but-for test.
And again, what is the but-for test? How does the but-for test work? Make a statement that includes that
so the
phrase.
but-for test would mean that they would have to demonstrate that they would not locate in Chattanooga, Hamilton County, but for the incentive. So, and in some places, they actually have a company sign something that says, without this incentive, we would not be here. Because what happens with companies is that their IRS data that shows that a company, I think, basically makes a decision on where to locate based on business considerations, where they think they can make money. And they look at things like labor costs and transportation costs, and the executives may look at quality of life and things like that. Well, these IRS statistics show that local property taxes only account for about 2% of a company's business expenses. And so I think what happens is the companies are very skilled, and they have people, consultants they use to do this, of making communities feel like, oh, if we don't give this tax break, then they won't locate here. And one person, there's a website I'd refer your listeners to called Good Jobs First. And what it says is that in many instances, the cake is already baked, that the company already knows where they're going to locate because of, based on business considerations. But then the tax break is the icing on the cake. And so I think we need on the front end to do a better job of making sure they really need the tax break. As I said, I think in the case of Volkswagen, because of there were so many states that were offering big incentive packages, we probably did need to offer an incentive. So on the Volkswagen deal, maybe I might question the amount of it, and it's an extremely generous incentive package. But I agree we needed to do it.
Well, how many?
What to me? Yes, go ahead.
Bring my listener up to date. Just remind us if you can recall the figure. How much did Volkswagen get in city, county, and state subsidies altogether? Was it some past $1 billion?
If you were go on that Good Jobs First webpage and look up mega deals, you would see that we gave them the largest incentive package of all the 10 automotive plants in the United States. So it is huge. I don't have that number at my fingertips, but I do know this, for example, that every year until 2039, and this started with Volkswagen in 2008 or so, that we are forgiving $8 million a year in city and county property taxes. So that's $8 million a year that we would be collecting that we aren't because of the pilot agreement. Now that really is sort of a drop in the bucket because, as you know, we made the land available to them, and maybe that was a good deal too, given the game changer status that Volkswagen represented. But we did that, and then we last year made a payment to them, the city and the county, $40 million. Sort of a grant to Volkswagen. Now that's not an ongoing expense. Hopefully that's a one-time expense, although I think we've committed to giving them $12 million this year.
What is that to be spent on, Helen Burns Sharp?
Pardon? What is that?
Well, we're talking with Helen Burns Sharp, and my question is, Helen, my listener's question is, what is that $40 million being spent on given to Volkswagen this year by way of check?
I think that goes for their, for infrastructure, for equipment, or whatever. I would need. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared really to talk about the
That's quite all right.
real specifics of that. But there are, there is data on this, but it's basically a grant to them to do things that they have said they were going to do relative to the operation of the plant. So whether it's infrastructure or whether it's equipment, I'm not quite sure. But as I said, I think that's a one-time split over 2 fiscal years payment of like $52 million. And then we have this ongoing forgiveness of property taxes. They are fortunately paying school property taxes, but they aren't paying, general government property taxes for fire and police and libraries, street maintenance, and all these other kinds of things.
Well, Helen Burns Sharp, you're a watchdog of government having an interest in the public's benefit. What should these agreements contain that they don't contain now? Agreements such as that with Volkswagen and those with the suppliers that came after it, and then future suppliers. What should be toughened in the legal language of these subsidy agreements?
Okay, well, David, I think first of all, we need to do a better job on the front end and not make, when someone comes into town, let's not offer them a tax incentive, right from the get-go. They need to demonstrate they really need it and they're going to do really good things here. Okay, so that said, then what also we need, and this comes under the umbrella of what I have been preaching, is we need policies and procedures for pilot agreements. So they would address things like, demonstration of public benefit and that you really need the subsidy, the but-for test on the front end. And then if we decide to grant a pilot, and I think it is something we need in our toolbox. I don't think pilots are inherently bad, but I think we need to be much more strategic than we've been, because we've got to realize that property tax is what keeps, city and county government going. And, when you allow the people maybe with the most ability to pay not to pay, then that's going to either lead to tax increases down the road for the rest of us, or our services are going to start to slip. So anyway, we need policies and procedures that address what happens on the front end when we're deciding whether or not we even want to grant a pilot. And then, to your point, and that's what I've sort of been off on since I read the Volkswagen news, it seems to me like even though the industry experts are saying you can't put a positive spin on what's happening with Volkswagen, and it is, I think it's really sad just all the way, in so many ways. But anyway, my positive spin though is, can this be a wake-up call to Chattanooga and Hamilton County about how, I think we need to, do a better job on the front end. Okay. But B, when we decide to grant a pilot agreement, we need to contain wording that protects the public when things go wrong. And no one, Volkswagen or us or whatever, could have anticipated, what's happening here. And we all kind of hope that things are going to somehow work out. But still, we need, and in an agreement, a pilot agreement is a legal document. And the sense I get is that these documents are written by the company attorneys, and maybe with help from, say, the Chamber of Commerce, who, is a business advocate and does a good job as being a business advocate. And so they write these, and they write them in a way that's very favorable to their position. In other words, these things read like, the city and county are going to waive these property taxes, until
shall.
and all like that. So anyway, their interests are very well protected. But what I find fairly appalling is that there's not a clear section about, okay, you know, if we agree to do this, then you commit to doing this. And if you don't do this in the way of jobs and investment and wages, then we do this. And we have, this is called clawback language, and it's sort of a kind of a money back guarantee for the public that if things don't go the way that, you know, it's been represented, that the public has some protection.
Well, it seems like business, Helen Burns Sharp, it seems that business should be wary of doing that, because then what you have then is you have effectively fascism, where you have state and corporate interests combining themselves to agree on some ostensibly high public purpose. And it seems like companies should be really unwilling to give any kind of clawback provision, because, hey, we are here just for our shareholders. Our obligation is to make a profit to the shareholders. We have a fiduciary duty as the board to profit them and our customers, and we don't want to make any agreements with states and counties. So
no, that's sort of an interesting view of it, David. I mean, to me, the deal is, number one, they don't have to ask for a tax break,
right?
Or do we have to grant a tax break? So, you know, so nobody's obligating them to, you know, to come to the public.
No one is pushing Volkswagen into the embrace of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, or the state of Tennessee. There's no push.
But we city and county and state taxpayers are invested big time in this, you know, Volkswagen facility here. And if it fails, I mean, we are, you know, as I said, this is what Good Jobs First calls a mega deal. This is huge in terms of the, I don't know if it's $1 billion tax break, but it actually may be when you add up everything. So it seems to me like if the public sector is agreeing to provide this magnitude of a tax break, there should be some protections, because ostensibly we're doing it because they say 2,000 jobs, a median wage of X, you know, an X $1 million investment. That's the public benefit that they're representing to us. So I think that we do have not only a right, but a responsibility to say, okay, you know, we trust you and we believe you intend to do this. But if something should go wrong, you know, like we're looking at right now, then we need some protection. In other words, let me give an example with Amazon. Amazon has been known, they have a pilot for their distribution center here. Well, they've been known, like I think in McDonough, Georgia, to just close the distribution center. Okay? They just decide they don't need that distribution center in that place anymore. Well, let's just take, I don't think that would happen here. I hope it would not happen here. But when you look at the wording in our pilot agreement, there's nothing that addresses that. There's nothing that, you know, sort of says, well, what if the distribution center closes? I mean, there are questions like, does this stay off the tax rolls as it is now? Is there any sort of repayment that we would expect them to do for the years we've been giving them a tax break in anticipation of their being here for whatever, 10, 15 years, however long that pilot is? Most are not as long as Volkswagen's, which is 30 years. So anyway, I mean, maybe we just, you know, we'll agree to disagree on the philosophy there, but I'm thinking, you know, if they choose to, you know, in essence, ask the taxpayers to subsidize them, then I think we, the taxpayers, should, you know, have our interests represented, so that if they don't do what they said they were going to do, that, you know, there's some relief to us.
We're talking with Helen Burns Sharp, who runs Accountability for Taxpayer Money, and you can find out more about her on her website, Helen Burns Sharp. She has filed watchdog lawsuits for subsidies for developers here in Hamilton County, and she has a long career in planning and civic life. And well, Helen, the question my listener asks is, okay, we're talking about these gigantic corporations, these combines, international combines such as Volkswagen, and we, the taxpayers, are subsidizing its operations, and there's no no one even thinks about any kind of breaks or subsidies, maybe not subsidies, but breaks for small businesses, startups, and the like. And I understand the Chamber of Commerce's foundation, which goes after these large players. Big speaks to big, but somehow in that seeking after rescue and salvation from afar from foreign capitals and foreign investors, the economy-minded people in Chattanooga forget that small business is constantly under harassment by taxation and licensing demands and personalty taxes and whatnot, and filing reports and so on. There's not much thought is given in all the hoopla for the big players for the little guy. No desire to relieve them of their harassing burdens.
I would agree. I mean, I would agree that, small business is sort of the lifeblood, and it's really ironic here that we, give these huge tax breaks to the big people that are, billion-dollar corporations that really, are doing quite well, whereas we have small businesses that, that are making ends meet and are contributing to the economy, employing local people, but maybe, don't have the capital on hand these big companies do, and yet they are being asked to pay their property taxes, just like you and I are. And we pay them in good times and in bad, and whether or not we've been laid off from our work or have had health issues or whatever, we're expected to pay our property taxes. And if we don't, then we get a letter from the county saying we might lose our property.
Right. The widow who lives on the corner of your street, Helen Burns Sharp, and the widow that lives on the corner of my neighbor's street, it has bad gutters. There's a hole. There's a hole in the wall on the back. There's some rottenness on the porch, and she doesn't have the means and doesn't know how to take care of it. And yet she still has to pay her, $495 city county property tax for that rundown place in which she lives. There's no hope for her. That she's out of the picture. But we have the gleaming, gigantic corporations which are in favor.
I think you're so right, and I think this raises a bigger question that might, appeal to you in terms of this whole thing about why is government picking winners and losers. There is as a provision in the Constitution that basically says, from a taxation standpoint, you can't, treat, business X different from business Y. But what happened, some creative attorneys some time ago came up with this sort of backdoor approach of saying, oh, well, why don't we create industrial development boards? And while the government can't, pick winners and losers and give money to Volkswagen, let's come up with this mechanism where the Industrial Development Board, which is public and, and tax exempt, that they take ownership. And then they lease the business back. That's the way these pilots work. It's really, really weird. I mean, it's just the way it's done, not only here but other places. So, in other words, you would find if you went on the county assessor's webpage and looked up, Industrial Development Board of Chattanooga, you would find all sorts of properties. At Coca-Cola, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Alstom, Volkswagen. You name it. I mean, there are like 60 of these agreements. You would find all of these properties that the Chattanooga Industrial Development Board owns. So we actually own, equipment and buildings at Volkswagen. But then what they do, they lease it back to the company for no, for nothing. But so this is what we go through in order to sort of, I think, circumvent, what the framers of our Constitution said about, you don't do this.
Right.
Now, I want to say again, everybody in Tennessee seems to do it. So, I mean, and that's the dilemma in an economic development environment where everybody seems to be throwing money at things that you feel like, well, if we don't offer it, then we won't get anything. I think Chattanooga, quite frankly, our program is sort of predicated on the Chattanooga 50 years ago, where maybe we were desperate to get anybody to locate here. And now, we've sort of become the darling. I mean, we've definitely been discovered. And the idea that we have to give away the farm to get people to come here, I mean, I think is crazy.
Helen Burns Sharp, thank you for explaining this very delicate problem to my listener and me today.
You're quite welcome.
No, really,
I appreciate the invitation.
Right quick, tell me and my listener how we can find out more about you. What's the website that gives the most detail about your current thinking and your work?
It's in my website, helenburnsharp.com. There are several tabs at the top, and there is a new one called ATM. One is on the Black Creek TIF, which is the lawsuit I filed several years ago. There's another general one on pilots that they might find interesting.
Well, thanks again, Helen Burns Sharp. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. This is David Tulis. We're brought to you by Superior Air Systems, the big orange vans driving about, keeping you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Also, if you need investment advice, make sure you contact Patrick Neal. He is the Edward Jones broker for you here in the Hickson area, but he can help you even if you, my listener, are a far place. His office is next to the Target behind the Cohutta Banking Company on Highway 153. The number is 870-7894. And he's a man who will give you time. He'll explain things to you. Very judicious man, and his outfit, Edward Jones, is the largest privately owned brokerage in the country, and does not face the same kind of churning pressures that publicly owned brokerage houses do. So call Patrick Neal at Edward Jones. And also remember, if you want to buy a pizza and have a little bit of inflation in your life, go to Raphael's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant, and you will get 2 pizzas for the price of 1. So how's that for inflation? This is the good news of inflation, if you think about it. Buy 1 and get a second pizza free. Raphael's has 3 outfits, 1 in Hickson, another in Soddy Daisy, and a third high in the clouds there on Taft Highway on Signal Mountain. This is David Tulis, and we're going to find out more about Superor Creek Lodge and the humanitarian disaster there.
After this mild start, expect more dry and warm weather for your Wednesday. First day of fall, but highs in many areas could be near 85 tonight. Lows into the lower 60s. Partly cloudy, continued warm Thursday, near 84 with more clouds and a few showers possible on Friday. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette, or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus, all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50% under normal use, that means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon, call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com.
We do free estimates. If your phone's not working properly, bring it in. We're happy to take a look at it and diagnose it and see what we think is wrong with it at no charge. Most phone repairs can be done in 30 minutes or less.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Here you are working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156. An alternative to insurance for people of Christian interest is Samaritan Ministries, a cost-sharing group whose fellow members contribute to your medical expenses. Hi, David Tulis here, member of Samaritan Ministries. I have no deductibles, no silly in-network rules. I choose my own doctors. I'm a cash payer and get the cash discount with med providers. I'm 100% compensated by Christian families around the nation who send their checks directly with a personal note and pray for me in my medical distress. I have a family membership. I write a $405 check every month to a person in need. Just love it. Learn more about Samaritan Ministries Tuesday, September 29 at 7 p.m. at Brainerd Hills Presbyterian Church on East Brainerd Road. It's a mini conference on the Christian alternative to medical insurance.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Soddy Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapanic. President Obama welcomed Pope Francis to the White House within the past hour with the pomp and circumstance associated with a state visit. Live to Washington and CBS News correspondent Barry Bagnatto. Well, apparently we've had some technical problems with Barry Bagnatto at the White House. The Pope and President Obama have concluded the ceremonies. They've gone back into the White House where they'll be talking for a while before the Pope departs. About an hour or so from now, the Pope will motorcade past a crowd that's waited since before dawn to get a glimpse of him.
I'm ecstatic. I just think he's a breath of fresh air. Pope doesn't come here very often, so it's a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Before leaving the Vatican's diplomatic residence this morning, the Pope hugged some of the people who gathered in the crowd outside. Hillary Clinton's lost State Department emails have been found. CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes has that.
The FBI has been able to make Clinton's once-deleted emails reappear. A new report by Bloomberg says investigators examining Clinton's private server are in the process of sorting messages sent during her time as Secretary of State.
That's not clear if any classified information was on those emails. The scandal over faked emissions tests was on the table at a Volkswagen board of directors meeting in Wolfsburg, Germany. The scandal could cost VW untold billions of dollars and force company CEO Martin Winterkorn to step down.
There's mounting pressure on him, and some say that he would have to go to try and reestablish some trust amongst customers.
James Batchelor with Auto Express magazine. An estimated 30 million Americans admit they've done it, mortgage their future by dipping into retirement accounts in order to pay for the things they need now. Bankrate.com chief financial analyst Greg McBride.
What's really troubling is that the age group that is most likely to be tapping into their retirement savings for unplanned expenses are those between the ages of 50 and 64.
McBride says millennials are in much better shape financially. The pharmaceutical company that caused an uproar by raising the price of an infectious disease drug by 5,000% says it's going to roll back some of that increase. It hasn't said what the new price will be. Baseball is mourning the loss of Hall of Fame New York Yankees catcher Yogi Berra, who died yesterday at the age of 90. Berra was a three-time most valuable player who dispensed wit and wisdom in what came to be known as yogiisms.
Whatever you do in life, 90% of it is half mental.
In spring training one year, Berra told his players to pair off in threes, and he let it be known that I take a 2-hour nap between 1 and 4. In early Wall Street trading, the Dow Industrials are down 60 points. This is CBS News.
Today on fleaspray.com, you will learn why new Nomo Flea and Tick Spray is totally safe for dogs, cats, puppies, kittens, kids, babies crawling on the carpet, and even you. New Nomo Flea and Tick Spray kills fleas and ticks with no poison. So as of today, you can stop using poison powders, poison collars, or poison foggers. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. New Nomo Flea is made from vegetable oil. Nomo Flea dissolves the hard shell of a flea or tick on contact, so the moist insides of that flea or tick just dry up. Nomo Flea instantly. No more ticks soon thereafter. Best of all, no more poison ever. Before your beloved pet ventures out in the backyard again, order a 30 or 60-day supply of new Nomo Flea. Do it today at fleaspray.com, fleaspray.com, FLEASPRAY.com.
The prison door is swinging open for a pair of Al Jazeera journalists and scores of others who offended the Egyptian government. We get the story from CBS's Alex Ortiz in Cairo.
2 imprisoned journalists will be freed today following a presidential pardon. Mohammed Fahmy and Beher Mohammed were sentenced last month to 3 years in prison after they were convicted of broadcasting false news. They are among nearly 100 young men and women to be released, including several prominent Egyptian liberal activists serving heavy prison sentences.
A third Al Jazeera reporter, Peter Gresta, has also been pardoned. He was deported to Australia earlier this year. An American who'd been held hostage in Yemen by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels is back home in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Former Marine Sam Farron was employed by a security company when he was captured. Farron and a second American, Scott Darden, were released a few days ago. Farron arrived in the United States last night. He said he's very happy and glad to be home. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
If you're hungry, make sure you go to Delia's for lunch today or for dinner tonight. Delia's, the authentic Mexican restaurant in South Sadi Daisy. Maria Hernandez has the best loaded nachos and crazy chicken, homemade tamales, enchiladas with beef, chicken, and pork, and iced tea. Now, your iced tea is free if you remember my name, David Tulis, and pass that along and say, hey, I heard about Delia's on the radio. That tea will come to your table with clinking ice cubes and no bill attached. Again, that's Delia's, the authentic Mexican restaurant. The number is 521-7145. That's 521-7145. On the taco platter, I believe it's the taco salad is the special today. It's $1 off, $6.25, and you will enjoy your fare there. Authentic Mexican restaurant at Delia's. And also, by the way, if you have a broken cell phone, make sure you contact Adam at Cell Surgeon. He is the doctor of the phone, and he can get most of your repairs done in half an hour, and you can even wait for them if he's not swamped at that Cell Surgeon at Northgate by the Old Chicago Pizza. The number is 668-0100, 668-0100. Cell Surgeon, your quick repair place in Chattanooga. Dick Cook is a reporter of a long note here in Chattanooga. He used to be a sports writer. He was a reporter on the news side at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, and working in the same office as I was there as an editor on the copy desk. And Dick left the paper some time ago, and is taking up the pen again in a new way, and that is through EastRidgeNews.com. It's a news website covering East Ridge, a very complicated little town that is known in the old newsroom as a place full of intrigue and odd characters and scandal occasionally, almost as bad as Cleveland, Tennessee, in Bradley County. Now, Dick Cook, I have a question for you, and that is, who is David Geisen? David Geisen, the man we've heard about, he's an entrepreneur. He owns Superor Creek Lodge in your town, in the town which is the focus of your news website, EastRidgeNews.com. Who is he, and why should our listener care about him, and what are some things that we haven't perhaps heard?
Well, first of all, it's EastRidgeNewsOnline.com. Let's get that straight. It's the website's a couple years old. I exclusively cover East Ridge. I'm very parochial in that way. David Geisen, he's an interesting man. I've become acquainted with David over the last couple of years. He and his family own several extended stay lodges in Georgia and one in East Ridge. And the one in East Ridge, Superor Creek Lodge, is the largest that David and his family owns. They purchased that lodge in 2007. Geisen is, I think there's 266 units in Superor Creek Lodge. That's more than double of the other lodges that he owns. And he's told me that he owns a couple, 3 in the Kennesaw area, I believe. But he's tried to be a good corporate citizen in my eyes. Right after they bought the lodge, there was a flood in East Ridge. The entire first floor of his extended stay motel was flooded. I believe he pulled out all the stops and used his resources, and they were up and running in, I think, 6 weeks, David. The idea of extended stay motels is interesting in East Ridge. If I could take a moment and reflect on Exit 1 back in the 70s when I was a boy, it was the second largest concentration of motel rooms around an interstate exchange in the country. Now, this is potentially a bonanza for a town like East Ridge. But during those days, there was no liquor by the drink. So the big players would think twice before they set up shop there, because, people coming from the north or people who like to imbibe, they want to stop at a place and stay overnight where they can get a cold, a liquor drink. So it started to fall into disrepair. The big chains began moving out. Smaller interests moved in, bought these facilities. And the only way they could survive economically was to offer rooms by the week or by the month. So we got into a whole concept that we have to offer extended stay motels. So David's is the largest in East Ridge. It's the most maligned. There are 4 or 5, perhaps even more than that. The city tried to deal with it some years ago. It was like shutting the gate after the horses got out of the corral. It was too little too late. Some motels were grandfathered in. We still have, we've got a problem there. And
what is the problem?
Well, the problem is we've got low income people, I won't say flocking, but congregating to places that they can afford to live. East Ridge has become that spot. Superor Creek Lodge is the biggest one. So David's become a target of people critical of offering extended stays. There's some accusations that it's nothing more than a place where druggies go to flop, and unfortunate people end up there and they're trapped and they can't get out. This is kind of the perception that Superor Creek Lodge has had. So that's who David Geisen is. I know him personally. I think he is a man of character. I do not consider David a slumlord. Over the years, East Ridge has asked him to improve his property in numerous ways, consistently asked, and he's complied. And this recent condemnation on September 9th came out of the blue.
The condemnation is based on what conditions, Dick Cook?
Well, it's based on life safety issues. That's the term that I'm told by the city's fire marshal and the city's acting city manager. They believe that the structure is so dilapidated that it could possibly collapse under its own weight. And to protect the tenants there, or the people staying in those rooms, they felt it was urgent. They had to get them out and get them out immediately without, well, I think with maybe an hour's notice, perhaps. I do know that Geisen met with city officials prior to September 9th. He met with them on the morning of September 9th. And officials at that time did not tell him that they were going to be closing down Superor Creek Lodge later that day. So this was a complete surprise to him.
Almost as if, let me just interrupt here, Dick Cook. It's almost as if that occasion would have been one for a good faith proposal. We are thinking of doing this. We would like to have some feedback from you, because that is how you, as an owner, a property owning, tax-paying resident of our city, can have your rights secure. I mean, after all, David Geisen does have constitutional rights. He has rights under statute. He has rights as a homeowner, a property owner, and the due process rules require you to get some kind of notice. So that meeting, you're saying, occurred the morning of the first of the two. There were two waves. In the first morning, he was not told about this. And are you suggesting, Dick Cook, that there may have been a meeting on some days prior to the September 9 shutdown?
I have no idea about that.
Okay, but that morning there was a meeting.
There was a meeting on the morning of September 9th, and Geisen was given no indication that a condemnation was imminent. What puzzled me about that is that in the past, when the city has said there's a problem with your property, you need to address issues, you need to fix it, he fixed it. Geisen has told me since 2007, when they bought that property, that he and his family have invested somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $700,000 in improvements that were required by the city. And of course, he spent money in other ways in upgrading the property that wasn't required by the city.
And but the reporting that you and others have done, Dick Cook, indicates that most of that money went to the security system. Say something about that security system. The access controls did go some distance to satisfying the police interest. Police often have been called there for fights and claims of drug dealing and so on. Talk about that system and what it did, and as an investment in the property.
Well, I'm not sure how much money he spent on the security system, but it had to be considerable. Let's go back to a April 2011 lawsuit that was filed by the city against Superor Creek Lodge. The basis of that suit, David Tulis, was a public nuisance. And I have a copy of that lawsuit. I didn't bring it with me to the studio, but it consists of 33 items. The majority of those items deal with keeping track the comings and goings of the residents of Superor Creek Lodge, ID cards, placards that are supposed to be hanging in their windows or of their cars when they come and go, security gates, electronic security gates, access, which restricts access to people coming and going Superor Creek Lodge. Of the 33 items, 32 of them were a requirement for Superor Creek Lodge owner to address. Two items required the city to take action, and those actions consisted of this. The city was required by the judge to install speed humps on North Mac Smith Road. The city was required to equip its emergency vehicles, and I think predominantly the fire engines, with some sort of an electronic device which would allow the gate to open up in the event there's an emergency or a fire there. So of the 33 items, 31 of them were on David Geisen, and 2 of them were on the city. That lawsuit dragged on. It was filed in April of 2011. It wasn't settled until December of 2014. They were operating under this court order. Now, why the lawsuit was not finalized or closed before that time, I have no idea.
Was that under the jurisdiction of city court?
No, it wasn't.
Or was that Chancery?
I think it was a sessions court. Judge Rebecca Stern.
Okay, so that's county sessions court.
Yeah, I believe so.
A corporation court. It's not a court of record.
All I know is that it was Judge Stern presided. But the thing drug on and on, and
what is that? How does my listener hear about this lawsuit and it being ended or settled in some way? Both parties have no further argument to make. They're more or less satisfied with claims and counterclaims, so they withdraw it, or it is pulled back. How are we to take that as far as David Geisen go? Does that say that he was he to, or we understand him as being in compliance with the authorities' wishes and satisfying safety interests of his?
I think
residents?
absolutely. I think both of the parties, the city and the owner of Superor Creek Lodge, were satisfied that steps had been taken to make the place more secure. Everybody walked away happy, and that was just at the end of 2014 in December. But of course, that lawsuit was essentially restricting access to people in and out of that place. Now, understand this: I look at police reports on an almost daily basis from the East Ridge Police Department. These are open records that any citizen can go in and access. And unfortunately, I'm the only person that seems to go in there and have an interest. But of these reports, they're daily reports. It's not all inclusive, but it gives you a good picture of what's going on in terms of crime. Consistently, Superor Creek Lodge is the site of crimes of all sorts. There's
such as
domestic assaults. Domestic assault can be
wife beating, kicking the kids.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of people that live
drunkenness.
800. Yeah, there's drunkenness. There's some drug activity. There's people who steal cars. They find them down there, so on and so forth. I'm going to say conservatively, there's no more than, of the reports that I review, less than one a day. I'm going to say less than 6 or 7 a week. Now you're talking about a population of 800 people down there. That's about 4% of the population of East Ridge. You draw a circle around my house on Marlboro Avenue that includes 800 people, and you're going to find 6 or 7 crimes weekly within that circle. My middle-class neighborhood, I contend, is no different than Superor Creek Lodge. 90% of the folks down there, in my opinion, are law-abiding people. 10% are bad characters, just like any given population.
So you're saying that just because they're concentrated on a couple acres, it looks like somehow that's a den of iniquity. But you're saying if you judge the population, that's an interesting point. It's not really any worse than other parts of East Ridge.
No, not at all. But the perception that has been painted over the years, and Superor Creek Lodge, let's look at it this way. It's an ad hoc housing, public housing for the city of East Ridge. That's essentially how it's perceived. And public housing in our area, in Chattanooga, it's portrayed in a bad light. These people are unfortunate. There's been generations of folks who live there. The unemployment rate is very high. Many of them work dead-end jobs. It's crime-ridden. Superor Creek Lodge is perceived like that by the people of East Ridge. It's the public housing.
And the people of East Ridge have no interest in that. They're rather condemning of it. Dick Cook runs East Ridge News Online, eastridgenewsonline.com, and it's a local-centric news website. Dick is a longtime reporter for many years at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press on the news side and on the sports side. And eastridgenewsonline.com covers East Ridge very, very carefully, and all the great and the small, the important and the ludicrous, all together on his website. Well, the question that I want to ask my listener wants to ask you, Dick Cook, is this: does not low interest housing, low market housing, does that not serve a real market purpose? People have to live somewhere, and poor people who live on minimum wage, maybe hold 2 or 3 part-time minimum wage jobs and have children and don't have many assets, they, in God's goodness, they have to have a place to live too. And is David Geisen not providing a real public service to have people not on the dole, not under Section 8 housing, have a free market solution to their housing needs? And you might say, well, they have to pay $600 a month to stay there, but there are no contracts. They have all things provided, and there is some security provided for them there among in those devices. Is that not providing a real benefit? And talk a bit about that. What do you think about that suggestion?
Well, I think Superor Creek Lodge serves a purpose. It's the public housing. Yes, people are going to have to live somewhere. I I'm not sure what the average rental price in Eastridge is. I've looked in some of the one ads and stuff, houses for rent, apartments for rent. It's $750, $800 a month. Geison's place is, I think the high end is $220 a month. Look, David Tulis.
What, back up?
I'm sorry, $220 a week.
A week, okay.
David Tulis. The idea of Geison running a business there, I think it's been very profitable. Otherwise, he wouldn't be there running this with all of the constant headaches and supervision and scrutiny by local government since he bought the place or his family bought the place in 2007. I think there's no doubt in my mind that he's making a profit.
He's making a profit enough to sustain the operation and apparently to persist in making repairs. Now, we've had these buildings condemned. We're talking with Dick Cook, EastridgeNewsOnline.com, an editor and a writer. From your indications, Dick Cook, is he going to try to get through this this very damning, he's been condemned, this very damning situation, which is catastrophic financially. It's catastrophic financially for him because now he has to make major repairs under scrutiny of government. Is he going to go ahead and kind of keep his investment going to have his revenues return, or is this pressure possibly too much for him? What do you think?
Oh, I think he has plans are underway now and could be finalized within the next couple of days, David. He has every intention of rebuilding and making it right and bringing it up to code. He's done it in the past. I believe he's going to do it in the future. I believe this is going to be a very expensive proposition for David Geison, but I think he has the financial wherewithal to ride this out. He's an astute businessman. He understands that 5 acres of property on adjacent to I-75 is going to be very, very valuable in the coming year.
And as long as he maintains ownership of the land, which is coveted by the city, coveted by developers possibly, he's going to maintain his income stream by providing a low-end service to the low-end housing market. But at some point, someone's going to say, look, we would like to buy these 5 acres from you for $15 million because we have the idea of building a very rich retail development here. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Dick Cook, and we're going to look next at some important question. There's a provision in state law, 2011 law, which makes land in Eastridge extraordinarily attractive. There's a tax benefit that is now coming into Eastridge in the prospect of new retail development, new tourism development that gives the city 75% of the state's sales tax take. 75%. There's a tremendous motive to unseat David Geison.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this mild start, expect more dry and warm weather for your Wednesday. First day of fall, but highs in many areas could be near 85 tonight. Lows into the lower 60s. Partly cloudy, continued warm Thursday, near 84 with more clouds and a few showers possible on Friday. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see what more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good.
Smells like a warm, big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. Two pizzas. You get the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're in Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. Two pizzas. You get the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian. A crowd of thousands on hand as President Obama welcomes Pope Francis to the White House after remarks the Pope and the President holding meetings this morning.
Things that were on his and our president's agenda. Caring for the marginalized and the poor, advancing economic opportunity for all, serving as good stewards of the environment, protecting religious minorities and promoting religious freedom globally, welcoming and integrating immigrants and refugees globally.
Fox's Shepard Smith, a Michigan man held hostage for months in Yemen, now reunited with his family. The former Marine was one of two Americans held, the other a man who works for a New Orleans-based logistics company. And a bald eagle found shot last week in Fulton County, Pennsylvania, has died, according to the state's Game Commission. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
We cover local economy and the free market here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And our theory is that we should love our neighbor and buy local, favoring the local provider as opposed to the corporate colonial outpost for commerce left and right on all the main thoroughfares. We have hundreds of outlets, and every one of them exports profit. Think for a second, if every business in your town or mine were owned by strangers, owned by people far away, the town could not survive. If you don't have profit in a town, there is no sustainability. Sustainability it comes from profit. So we need more businesses locally owned and operated, and not ones that export the profit. Volkswagen, of course, is a major exporter of profit, but we don't notice that because we have jobs, we have things like that, and tax revenues, and somehow we just forget that the profit has to stay for there to be a real gain and longevity and sustainability. That word does not belong to the environmentalists. It really belongs in the vocabulary of the marketplace. Near is better than far. Small is better than big. Simple than complex. And down where the fleas make their war with their blades is personal is better than corporate. And footnote number 2, physical is better than abstract. Remember, you can get 2 pizzas for the price of one at Raphael's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant. Buy one and get a second pizza free. And if you are like me, wanting to start a business and wanting to be an entrepreneur with hope for the future, desiring to establish and enhance your estate, and you don't have your own idea for business, buy into somebody else's business through the franchise model. Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source, he will fit you into the franchise suitable to your background, your interests, your capital availability, and all in tune with local economy here. Entrepreneur Source is at 875-5621, 875-5621. And remember, if you need cell phone repair or service, go to Cell Surgeon in Northgate by the Chattanooga Pizza, 668-0100, 668-0100. Cell Surgeon, making the guts work in your favor. We're talking with Dick Cook. Dick Cook will be publishing at some point today an essay that I've written that talks about parasitical capitalism, and the parasitical capitalism that I am discerning in East Ridge is that of city government, which seems to covet 5 acres of land that is serving the public in a very important area, and that is low-income short-term housing. And the property in question is Superor Creek Lodge. Superor Creek Lodge, owned a $3 million investment, owned by the Geisen family. David Geisen is the man here living in north of Atlanta, owns this property and is serving the low-end market. In other words, poor people. They have bad grammar, drive old cars, wear wife-beater T-shirts on the balcony, and sometimes maybe slap their kids around. And these are somewhat rough people, maybe not the best educated, but often very hardworking, very well-intentioned. Some of them are vastly overweight, don't have any sense of style, but nonetheless, they are human beings made in God's image. And the question is, cannot they have their place? Cannot they have their place? Dick Cook, we're going to ask you about the ouster, and that is to say the eviction process that occurred September 9 and 10 in East Ridge, your town. You cover East Ridge on eastridgenewsonline.com. That's eastridgenewsonline.com. And Dick has been very gracious to publish a piece today from me, your editor. I write at Nooganomics.com. Dick, what happened on the moment of the crisis, in which we've been calling a humanitarian catastrophe in the Chattanooga area? What happened?
Well, I got a heads up that the city was going to move at about 5:30 on this eviction. So naturally, I went down to the property and waited. Nothing really happened until about 7:20 that night, and authorities came in. The fire marshal came in his truck. City manager. There was a phalanx of police vehicles. There was an ambulance. They came in. Code enforcement workers trudged inside with yellow notes, yellow post signs that were saying, this is condemned, and here's the reason why: life safety issues. There was very little hue and cry from inside of the gates, from inside of the fence. People were milling around. I think they had a darn good idea that that their time there was going to be limited. Word on the street, you know how that is, David Tulis. It was surprisingly orderly. I hate to say this, but I anticipated some violence. There was no violence. By this time, David Geisen was on the property. He was inside of the administration building. People were lining up and around the building in an orderly way. Room numbers were being called out, and presumably the people who were living in those rooms would go inside the administration building, and David Geisen would write them a refund check for the rent that they paid. Names were being called out. If not a room number, it was a name. Mr. Smith, Jim Smith, get up here. It was fine. It was surprising, but I think it's a testament to the character of the people who live there. Yes, they're poor people. They're unfortunate. But I think by and large, they're law-abiding. I think 90% of the folks there are just trying to make their way in the world. Work their job, their 2 jobs, work their shift, get their kids to school, come home to whatever home might be. It was an orderly evacuation of, at that time, half of the people. Unfortunately, there was a thunderstorm brewing during that time, and people were having to, leave in the rain. There were some people who came to collect them in cars and trucks. They had some trailers. They were trying to get their worldly belongings and get out and comply with what the city was asking them to do. It was I was shocked, David Tulis. I was shocked.
You were shocked because of the pacific, calm nature of these people who were being evicted without due process. That's something that I've been harping on here on our station. My listeners are very concerned about due process. Was anybody told, hey, you can ask a judge about this? Was a judge's order involved? Talk a little bit about that and how this was really a kind of emergency executive action from top down without judicial oversight.
One of the first questions I asked Mike Williams, who is our fire chief and the acting city manager, and let me preface this, Mike Williams is a friend of mine. I respect the man. It was very difficult for him to do. And I could tell that. I don't think he was blowing smoke. First question I asked, Mike, don't you need a court order to do this? Response, no. This is being done under life safety issues by order of the Chief Building Codes Officer, Code Enforcement. The idea I was told, this man's name, by the way, is Brad Hayen. He's new to the job. He's been there for 3 or 4 months. He's really made an impact. What I was told was the building was in such deplorable shape, according to the chief codes inspector, that it could literally fall down without a load on it. Primarily, the issue was the exterior walkways on the 2nd and 3rd floor. They were crumbling. There was ultimately, we found out that the substructure, the supporting beams, are made out of wood, and then there's concrete poured on top of that. Over the years, that the structure, the beams have deteriorated. They've rotted. So we've got a load on these exterior walkways, and I saw them. They're slumping. They're a little wavy. It looks a little iffy, but the authorities were convinced that they had to get everybody out of those 2 buildings on September 9 because the building could collapse. And I think they were acting in pretty good faith. That was on September 9th.
So what I saw. Back up just a second, Dick Cook. We're talking with Dick Cook from East Ridge News Online. What's the difference? Why is good faith important? Because good faith is the opposite of bad faith. What's the difference? And you're saying you saw in Mike Williams's demeanor and in his purpose, you saw good faith. Talk about that. The difference between those two things and why that's important.
I think there are some people in the city who may believe that the city of East Ridge is trying to get their hands on the property at Superor Creek Lodge, that there might be some sort of a conspiracy by unknown folks to use the city as an arm to kick them out, make it impossible for Geisen to run his business, and then for the city or others to take over that. I think Mike Williams and his staff and the city staff were acting in good faith. I don't think that there was any sort of pressure put on them by external folks. Remember this, David Tulis. The initial complaint a couple days before September 9th was a resident called the city and said that there was a pest infestation in their room. And authorities responded, code enforcement authorities responded, went into the room. They did not find...
Would that be as in termites?
Possibly. I think roaches, rats, pests, okay. Fleas, bed bugs, whatever. They went in there and checked it out. Turned out to be untrue. As the inspector was leaving, he noticed there was some support issues outside there on that exterior walkway. He noticed that one of the columns was coming undone from the floor, and it was sagging. There was a gap. At that point, he was bound, I imagine, by his own conscience to take a look at it. And what he discovered was that there were some serious structural problems in their eyes. That's what I'm talking about in good faith. I think they were acting in good faith. I think they were acting in the public's interest, trying to safeguard people's well-being. Now, with that said, I'm not sure that they acted responsibly by insisting that these people leave these 2 buildings immediately. I think there's a track record that Geisen cooperates with the city. I think perhaps, and I'm a Monday morning quarterback here, it's easy to do. I think perhaps they could have said, look, Mr. Geisen, you've got a serious problem here. Let's get these 150 folks who live in this one building out of here tonight. Let's get them out of here tonight. And let's take a look at the structure. Let's repair that. They can come back in, a week or two. There would be no migration. There would be no refugee problem that we experienced on September 9th and September 10th.
So due process rights could have been at least somewhat preserved, Dick Cook, if Geisen had been brought in to say and had been told, look, we see these problems, we think it's grievous, we would like you to take an emergency step, rather than the city by executive power and police power to oust these people themselves. Are you suggesting that? Would that have maybe satisfied the due process questions that I've been raising?
Well, perhaps. I just think it was a radical move that the consequences of which I'm not sure that the city gave much thought to what was going to happen when you move 400 people one night and 400 people the next night. They didn't have any place to go. What I'm puzzled with is why, if in the past Geisen did cooperate with the city officials, like the city officials said that he cooperated, they would go down and point out some deficiencies. David would address it. The lawsuit that lingered for 3.5 years, David took care of all of that too. I mean, the man cooperated with city officials. So they had this reaction. Their actions were we got to shut these 2 buildings down and get these people out of here for their own safety. I just don't seem to understand that.
Well, there's a saying, Dick Cook, that necessity is always the tyrant's plea. The tyrant, the despot, the man who wants to act unilaterally, often outside of law, often in the interest of himself or his party, he says here is a necessity. It's so urgent that we do not have to worry about the niceties of law, property rights, or constitutional rights. And that's the question I've been raising. It seems to me that the haste is uncalled for, that the owner of the land, David Geisen, and the buildings was not given due process rights, and the city overrode him. In other words, pretended he wasn't there as the owner, who is he is the executive, you might say the executive of that company, of that entity. No, we override him out of necessity, and we are at the helm, and we now direct all these somewhat impoverished and poor people onto the street 2 days in a row. For 2 days, and in the end, 4 buildings are vacated of their people who have domicile there. They're not just renters; they have domiciles and residency. They've met residency requirements, many of them, by intending to stay there. So they have domiciles, residencies, and in effect castles. They're in their own castles, and now they're not just searched without a warrant. I would say it's even worse. They are told, "Get out." The policeman banging on the door, the woman opening the door, the husband's not home yet maybe, and he says, "You've got to get out, we're ordering you out." That seems to me a breach greater than a violation of the Fourth Amendment, which is the requirement for searches only with warrants or probable cause.
I think you're overstating what happened there. The cops didn't come and bang on the door. I think the people knew exactly what was going on. As I said, the word on the street was we were being kicked out. Yeah, it's kind of heavy-handed. There's no question. I think it was heavy-handed myself. But again, let's think about who these people are. They're essentially powerless. You got no money, you got no juice. Who are you going to complain to? Where are you going to go? Or what are you going to do? File a lawsuit against the city?
No one's filed any lawsuits.
What are we going to do? How do you fight City Hall? Yeah, it was they were treated harshly, it was a dark day in the city's history. I think the city will bounce back from this. Hopefully, if it works out like it's planned to work out, the city has called attention to a problem in structures where poor people stay. The man who is their landlord, who should have kept the place up, and I don't think he knew of the real serious problems. I think if he knew about them, he would have fixed them. I think he's going to fix them. I think he's going to address this. He's going to improve the property, the places where these people stay, David. Okay?
This is David Tulis. We've got a caller. We're talking with Dick Cook. Caller, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
The arrogance of government is beyond belief. It's like the federal government's not bad enough. But these little tyrants in these little towns using the power of the state, to me, it tantamount to treason. Yeah, come on. Let me ask you this. Are the city governments going to close down their projects? I've been out there. I viewed that so-called tenement last week. It wasn't in bad shape. These are little tyrants. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Who's getting paid off? Where the money's flowing? What they want to put there? These little tiny bureaucrats need to be put in their place. They're a bunch of punks, and they use government, and they throw the weight of government around to bully business people. You know what they need? A spanking, not court. You know, when a zoning officer comes in your building, they should be grabbed by the back of their head, pants pulled down, and spanked.
Now, hold on. We're a pro-government station, and we will not have any callers condemn or inveigh in that way against government. We are very much pro-government. So, Dick Cook, you're pro-government too, and in fact, all of our listeners are. We're for government in the sense that self-government is the primary and principal form of government, which we all would like every man to adhere to. And then, of course, we want government constrained by law, limited by the Constitution. The caller, though, Dick Cook you're the chief editor and writer of EastridgeNewsOnline.com. The question he's bringing up is, let's bring it up now, the Border Region Retail Tourism Redevelopment District Act. That is such a mouthful that my listener is almost dozed off by the last couple of words, but just perk up here again. It's called the Border Region Retail Tourism Development District Act. How that it passed in 2011 and East Ridge in 2012 in midsummer in June created a development district in terms of this act. How it seems to be a separate story, but they're coming together. And Dick Cook, talk about this, what the purpose of this act is, and how the development district that's going on around Superior Creek Lodge somehow might touch with the eviction of these people and the effort to condemnation of 4 large buildings.
Well, that's a mouthful of an act. We refer to it as the Border Region Act. It's pretty simple. It's in theory, the Border Region Act would allow the city to recoup 75% of the state sales taxes that would normally be going to the state from retail sales. The city would conceivably, they would do some infrastructure improvements, invest $1 million, and they would turn that into the state. They would be reimbursed 75% of the cost for that particular project. It's being billed as a renaissance for the city. Potentially, it is a renaissance for the city. Lots of interest has been generated, and new development is taking off. We've got a new Walmart neighborhood grocery market there. Bass Pro Shops has broken ground. Some developers have started with a big old honking project called Jordan Crossing, which could potentially generate $1.5 million in new sales taxes next year, which is about half or similar to what we're collecting in sales taxes last year. So it's a big deal. Now, David Geison's property is right across Interstate 75 from Jordan Crossing. It is prime real estate for potential development. Listener, you draw your own conclusion. Mr. Geison has been in litigation with the city for about half the time he's been in business. I don't know if the city's trying to get its hands on it. I don't think they are. I think maybe some other people might be. Don't know.
It's important to point out that Superior Creek Lodge may collect some kind of hotel tax, but it does not generate sales tax, right?
That's correct. There's a hotel motel tax, and I'm not sure all the intricacies of that. I think that tax may be avoided by extended stay motels, David Tulis. There may be an exemption there. So it is not a cash cow for the city at all.
And it has the problem of being a place of low repute. And you have a survey, Dick Cook, on EastridgeNewsOnline.com, which says it's 10-1 in favor of the city's actions. People are generally favoring Mr. Williams's executive action to condemn these buildings and remove these sort of unsightly Americans from that domain. 800. Real quick, Dick Cook, the initial reports in the Chattanooga Times Free Press based on Salvation Army figures was 1,500 people. How is that? I've been reporting your figure, which is 800 people evicted. Is that where we need to stand on the numbers of human beings involved?
I think so. The 1,500 number is inflated. The only thing I can think of is that other homeless people or unfortunate people who may have been in the area glommed on to the whole idea of getting help from social services.
Okay.
And they represented themselves as being residents of Superor Creek Lodge. But I know for a fact there's 260 odd units there. And the owner told me at one point in happier times that 800 people live in that place.
So we have 800 people out. And so Dick Cook, your report, I wanted to ask you about your website. How you are a former newspaper editor and reporter and sports writer. How is it that you're making a living? How are you getting on as a publisher? You have advertisers on your website that's really very good.
Well, I've started this a couple years ago. I actually inherited it from a woman named Karen House who started the thing. She moved away. I picked up the mantle. Eastridge needs, the citizens of Eastridge need to be informed about what's going on in their community. Mainstream media neglects them. I'm there as a public service.
And you've lived there your whole life.
I have lived there my whole life. And I love the place. I'm not going to go anywhere. We've got problems. I think there are better days ahead of Eastridge. Before the caller called, I think David Geisen has plans to repair his business and get it back up and running.
Well, we're all for the marketplace. We're all for the free market and men and women prospering by serving others, whether they be rich or poor. Dick Cook, thanks for joining my listener and me here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
My pleasure, David.
Dick Cook is the chief writer, editor at EastridgeNewsOnline.com, part of the budding movement of local journalism, independent journalism, apart from establishment capital interests such as TV stations and the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. Real coverage of Eastridge by Dick Cook. He's there all the time. He lives there, knows everybody there. So that's where you get your local news from, a local source who has a civic obligation, a civic duty. And my name is David Tulis. Thanks for giving us a couple of minutes of your time.
After this mild start, expect more dry and warm weather for your Wednesday. First day of fall, but highs in many areas could be near 85 tonight. Lows into the lower 60s. Partly cloudy, continued warm Thursday near 84 with more clouds and a few showers possible on Friday. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see why more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50% under normal use. That means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.